Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with number 90 in this series Viewers Games. A number of people have asked me when it is their turn. Well, here's the waiting list. This video is about Patrick's game and the next one will be about Jarek there at the top left, then Mayank, then Gisanu. But before I do that video I have to ask him how to pronounce his name or her name. Then Sean, then Khan, it goes down the list, and then Evan Orr is the last one from the first row. Then it goes up to the second row, Jacek, Justin, Anthony, and so on. There's a total of 62 names here, so quite a backlog. And it was the viewer Jim who made a suggestion to do 2 or more games per video. That is indeed the best way to get rid of the backlog, and I'll try to do that, especially when there's short games. I will put more than one in one video. But it's also a matter of the time that I have available to produce videos, as there's quite a bit of work involved in analyzing the game, then recording the video, editing and loading it up. But as mentioned, this game is from Patrick. Patrick says, "Hello Rick, my name is Patrick. Absolutely love your material on your channel. I think you're making your way to becoming a very famous commentator in YouTube land. Anyway, I have a game I'd like you to take a look at. This was a very big game against a Fide Master, rated 2343 on Lichess. Hope you enjoy and can make a video for it as well. Would love to see it," says Patrick. And Patrick was black in this game, so let's look at the game from the black side. And indeed, the white player was a Fide Master under the name of Ventura MF with a rating of 2343, and Patrick is Pat6578 on Lichess and had a rating of 2185, also a very good rating. It was a simultaneous display by white, and white opened with knight f3. Knight f6 from Patrick, our hero in this game. d4, e6, g3, b6, bishop g2, bishop b7. White castled. Patrick played the bishop to e7, c4, and white has a structure from the Catalan opening. If black, for example, castles here, then this d4, c4, and the bishop fianchettoed on g2, that is the Catalan structure. Carlsen, Ivanchuk, Galfand, Ponomariov all have had this position with black, and they all castled here. But Patrick does something else. After c4, he played c5, and now we are in the English opening. After the c4, c5 moves, this is a variation from the English. Knight c3, c takes d4, and in this position, with the white pieces, there were also players like Carlsen, Kramnik, Nakamura, and Ivanchuk, and they took with the queen. Queen takes d4. But Ventura MF, the Fide Master, took with the knight, which is also fine. But the Grandmasters all chose to take with the queen. Bishop takes g2. That bishop was hanging on b7, and Patrick swaps it against its counterpart on g2. King takes, Patrick castles, and e4, pushing in the center. The position now has the look of a Maroczy bind position in the Sicilian opening, with this e4, c4, e6, and d7 pawn structure. Lots of openings intermingled in this game. Knight c6 from Patrick, bishop e3, and bishop b4. And now we're threatening this pawn, because black is threatening to take on c3. That knight is protecting the pawn on e4. And if that knight is removed, then this pawn will be unprotected. So that's the threat. Here knight takes c6 is the best move. Then d takes c6 and queen f3, for example, as given by the engine. And black keeps his pawn on e4. It's now protected also by the queen. But white played knight d to e2. And this backward jump from a piece that was in a nice position on d4 hands the initiative to black. Not a good move, knight back to e2. Of course, if black now takes on c3, the knight will take back and this pawn will still be protected. But knight g4 is a good move from Patrick. And bishop f4 to preserve that bishop, not let it be taken on e3. g5, attacking the bishop again. And here bishop d6 is the best move according to the engine. Bishop takes, queen takes, and knight ge5 with an equal position. White decided to play the bishop to another square. The attacked bishop on f4 went back to d2. And now f5. Very energetic play by Patrick. Here the best option is e takes f5, rook takes f5, and then f4 with equality. But white decides on f3 instead, kicking the knight. Knight went to e5, and now first taking on f5 is better for white than playing b3 immediately. He played b3 here, but he should have first taken on f5, rook takes f5, and then b3. But as said, white played b3 straight away, and that gave Patrick a chance to push the g-pawn. Actually, f4 would have even been better. And then we have this variation, g takes f4, g takes f4, and now be careful, you cannot take on f4, because then there is a nice move. Bishop takes c3, and this knight is overworked. It has to take back on c3, but it also has to keep protecting the bishop, which is attacked by the rook. And it can't do both things at the same time. So let's go back, we played f4, g takes f4, g takes f4, and now bishop takes f4 is a big blunder, as we just saw. And by the way, knight takes f4 is also a big blunder, because of bishop takes c3 again. And now the bishop is overworked. It really should take back on c3, but it also has to keep protecting the knight. These are nice variations, with the knight being overworked in one variation and the bishop in the other. So f4 was the best move here for Patrick, but he chose to push the other pawn. He played g4. And here f4 is the best move, but white decided to take on g4 instead. F takes g4 from Patrick, and now bishop f4 is the best move, but white decided on h3. Patrick took on f1, queen takes f1, and knight f3, jumping into white's position with that knight. And here, the Fide Master blundered. He overlooked that his bishop on d2 was unprotected and was attacked by the knight on f3. He simply overlooked that. He took on g4 and dropped a piece, but that was not the end of the story yet. Yes, Patrick said, thank you very much, I'll take that bishop. But the knight might now get stranded there. So white might have hopes to win that knight and win the piece back that way, and is still in the game. Queen f4. Was it that maybe the Fide Master had seen this move and had seen that the knight got stranded and that he is not losing a full piece? Maybe it was not a blunder. I think he simply blundered a piece on d2 and is lucky that he can still play on, trying to trap that knight. You might want to tell me in the comments what you think. Did white blunder that piece, or did he give it away on purpose and is now going to round up that knight on d2? At least he's going to try. This is a beautiful move from Patrick. Look at this one, knight d4. What a great move. One black knight is hanging on d2, and what does Patrick? He does just put another knight en prise on d4. That knight is also hanging. White can take both knights. Well, can he? No, he can't, because if you take on d4, then the knight on c3 is hanging, attacking the rook in the corner. Rook d1, bishop takes d4, rook takes d2 and e5, and black is still a piece up. So taking a knight on d4 doesn't work. What about taking the other knight? Queen takes d2. Well, then there is knight takes e2, and if you take with the knight, that's not good, you lose the queen. And if you take with the queen on d2, then the knight on c3 is hanging again. So that also does not work for white. So in this position, even though both black knights are hanging, you cannot take either of them. And that is what makes knight d4 such a beautiful move from Patrick. Let's look at another option that was not played. Let's look at rook d1, lining up those knights. Are you going to win one of them now? Well, let's see. Then Patrick can play knight takes e2. You have to take back, that knight is attacking the queen. And then queen e7. Not an easy move to find, but it's the strongest move in the position. Then white can take on d2, trying to get two pieces for that rook. But there is rook f8, queen e3, bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, and queen f6. Yes, white has been able to get some material back, but black is winning here with an extra exchange and an unsafe white king. And these pieces on the f-file are very powerful. So back to the game. We played knight d4. Well, Patrick played knight d4, and we looked at taking either knight, and we looked at rook d1. In the game, white played queen e5. White succumbs under the pressure because that is not a good move. Patrick took on c3, knight takes, and knight 2 to f3. Those knights are now protecting each other. White is not going to get his piece back. Attacking the queen, queen f4, and here the best move is again queen e7 to let the rook come to f8 with a lot of power. Rook f1, rook f8, queen e3, and white will not get 2 pieces for the rook, which would leave him only an exchange down, but that's not happening now. Black keeps his extra piece. But Patrick played queen f8, and if now white plays rook f1, that is a good move because then white will get the 2 knights for his rook, but he played rook d1. Bad move. Here queen g7 is the best move, followed again by rook f8, and black remains a piece up. But Patrick thought, I'm material up, I'm going to swap the queens, even though that straightens out white's pawn structure. Rook f8, and here rook d3 is not possible, again to try and get both knights for the rook, because then there is knight e1 check with a nice fork winning that rook. There is a move for white to stay in the game, and that's a very difficult move to find. The engine gives it straight away. It is knight c3 to b5. Very difficult move. And why is this good? How can this be good for white? Well, let's look at a variation. If you take on b5, then the king takes that knight, and then you have to save your knight, for example, knight c7, and then there is rook takes d7. And this is a very difficult endgame where white has drawing chances. He has 2 pawns for the knight. His pawn structure looks better than a few moves ago. And he has an active rook. Black is facing a tough technical task to win this endgame. So that after rook f8 and then knight b5. But that's a very difficult move to find. White did not find it. He played king g3. And now black is definitely going to stay a piece up. e5, f takes e5, and knight takes e5. And here Ventura MF resigned the game. He saw that he's staying a piece down. Rook takes d4, wins a knight, but he's losing one straight away with rook f3 check. A rook double attack. King g2, rook takes c3, and let's look at a few more moves. Rook d5, attacking the other knight. And now be careful, don't take on g4. And why not? If you want to look for yourself, put the video on pause. Why is knight takes g4 a big blunder? Because now white has a double attack with his rook. Rook g5 is check, and he picks up this knight. So after rook d5, knight g6 is a safe move. You can take that pawn, but then rook c2 check, another double attack from that rook. King g3, rook takes a2, winning a pawn, protecting the a7 pawn, and this endgame is a lot worse for white than the other version we saw. He has now only 1 pawn for the knight, and white's pawn formation is less strong, and black's rook is now very active. This position is much easier to convert for black than the previous one we saw. What a game from Patrick. He called it a very big game, and it was indeed quite a complex game. I had a lot of fun analyzing it, and I hope you enjoyed the different variations that I showed you. Well played, Patrick! A great win over a Fide Master, and thank you very much for sharing this game with me so I could share it with the Chess to Impress community. Hope you liked this video. If you would like your game to be analyzed, you can send it to me by email to classroomchess64@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter, and now also on Instagram, chess_2_impress. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. If you like the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.